When you are a creative person, not every day is going to be successfully creative. I am immediately intimidated and overwhelmed, and I don't remember the English language. I do not have an organized system for this. If nothing else, my routine is going to get me to the end of this project. My hair takes forever to dry. I don't like using a blow dryer, so you're just gonna have to accept me in wet wrap form. Hello, it has been about 2 weeks since I posted my last vlog, probably even longer since I last recorded, so I just wanted to film a little intro here, a little catch up. I posted my last vlog on a Monday, and I was pretty eager to jump into the next one, but I thought it would be healthy to take that week off of recording to just focus on my projects themselves and not worry about doing everything on camera. The vlogging is really fun, but I don't want to get obsessed with it, you know what I mean? So I took that week off, and then I was very eager to start recording again last week, but two things are that, one, I live with my sister, and she was laid off work last week, so she was home all week, and I'm not at the point I can record when I know other people know I'm recording. I'm shy lol. So I wasn't gonna record last week anyway, but then Tuesday, unfortunately, my mom, she lives across the country with our dog, and he was very old man, very unwell, and she had to take him in to say goodbye, and I don't really want to talk about it anymore because I don't want to have a mental breakdown on camera. So last week was just a lot of depression, and I wasn't really doing anything productive last week, which is fine. I'm not mad at myself about that or anything, but I'm definitely at the point now where I want to do something with myself. I don't like sitting around doing nothing. I never have, even when it's not under unfortunate circumstances. I just don't like sitting still. Maybe that's healthy and maybe it's not, to constantly be occupying myself, but I also have ADHD, so what do you want? Anyway, I'm eager to get back to recording. I'm eager to get back to working on my story. The week that I took off of recording before last week, my writing update was, so my routine with writing is usually in the morning. I try to get up early and spend an hour or two on my projects every day, but also on Wednesdays are when I give myself the whole day to work on writing. I did not do my morning session today, so I might already be off to a flop start, but it's fine. The Wednesday before last was my last writing day, and that, again, another instance of flopping. Nothing was happening in my brain that day. I sat staring at my computer for hours, staring at pieces of paper for hours, and it was just crickets. Nothing was connecting. I wasn't coming up with new ideas. I was getting very frustrated, and the more frustrated I got, the less likely it was anything was gonna happen. So I think it was around 2 o'clock that day where I was like, okay, never mind, I'm done. That never feels good. I've had days like that before, and I know I'll have days like that again. It's just part of it. I wasn't upset at myself. I wasn't like, oh, this is a failure of me as a person. When you are a creative person, not every day is gonna be successfully creative, and I don't like how that feels, but it's gonna happen. And it's, as long as it doesn't happen all of the time, then I can just try to accept it as part of the bigger creative lifestyle, I guess, whatever. But I went to bed very upset about that. I was like, it still just feels really yucky, and I don't like when it feels like I wasted that whole day, and I don't like when I feel like I've wasted time. But the next day, that Thursday morning, during my morning writing session, stuff started to click again. The neurons began to fire, and I got a new idea for a possible theme / philosophy / just debate discussion to have in this story. I've never technically introduced myself, I guess, because I have flashbacks to middle school where they're, stand in front of the class and tell us 3 things about yourself. Horrible, just horrible. But hi, my name's Marty, but I am known online by a lot of my friends as Pidge. You can call me either. My pronouns are they, them, and I am working on developing a story idea for an adult cyberpunk novel that is being nicknamed Project Hyacinth. I'm still pretty much in the brainstorming phase. I've been brainstorming for a few months now. It's very hard. I don't remember what I was saying before that. That's probably also why I don't introduce myself. Oh yes, my idea. Basically, with writing cyberpunk or writing sci-fi, futuristic sci-fi, I was asking myself the question of what role does AI play in this world in particular that I am developing? Because in my opinion, with the level of integration that artificial intelligence has in our society today already, I don't know if it's possible to write a story about the future where you don't at least acknowledge the role of sci-fi or the role of AI in the speculative future. I'm sure you can and make it work, but to me, I'm like, I don't know if I'd be able to suspend my disbelief to have you not at least mention, like, here's what it does and here's how it plays into daily life and society and industry and whatever. So I was asking myself that question. I was not thinking my story would be around AI necessarily. There is something that might potentially be like AI adjacent, but I was asking, AI as we know it now and speculating on its advancements, what role might it play in my society? And I was thinking for my female main character, Sawyer, I'm back and forth between her being a hacker and an engineer, or if she's both, which one is kind of like her main gig. But either way, she's a very intelligent, tech-savvy person, and she has this little, like, robot companion entity that either she built or her parents built. I'm still figuring out her parents' role in things as well, but basically this is sort of an example of AI in the world, or one version of AI. But then I had the idea where I was like, maybe she calls it synthetic intelligence, which was just totally off the top of my head. And I was like, that just sounds like semantics, but it also sounds like something that might already exist. So I did a little search on it, and it is actually a discussion that exists in like the technological space. And there is a debate about, I don't know if it's a debate, but there is a concept of artificial intelligence versus synthetic intelligence, or artificial intelligence becoming synthetic intelligence. It's very fascinating if you just want to research it. I guess I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but I was like, hey, this is actually really interesting, and it's a fascinating conversation to propose, and maybe this has a bigger role in my story than I had expected, because I don't know, I was reading about it and it felt like a very exciting thing that had a lot of potential to explore in the world that I'm creating. Will it be as much of a focus as I am speculating? I don't know. Anything is subject to change, but at least it felt like I was being creative again after a day of not making any progress. I was just very excited to have a new lead. When you're writing a story, even if it's not a literal like mystery genre, it's still a puzzle you're putting together. And to me, it's like the corkboard in the detective's office at the police station, where you're drawing lines and this connects to this, and how do these people know each other, and what happens when this happens, and what's the result, what order of events did these things occur, blah 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 blah. Anyway, I think that's most of what I wanted to yip yap about here in this intro. Again, like I said, I'm very eager to get back in the saddle, get back in the swing of things. I'm still sad, but I'm ready to get back to routine and try to regain a sense of control. I guess my sister was doing a lot for me last week, and she was just kind of taking care of everything in the house, and not like she was holding it against me or anything, but my own conscience is like, okay, it's time to start doing your part again. I don't know if today is gonna be a writing day, or like if I'm gonna get a writing session in today. Today might just be like an admin housekeeping day to reset a bit and find my footing again, and maybe set the stage so that tomorrow and the rest of the week I feel a little more mentally prepared to proceed with projects and goals and yada yada. But I did just want to at least film this and get the ball rolling on the new vlog. I'm looking forward to filming again. I'm looking forward to making writing progress and sharing that with you. So let's I don't know. We'll see what the day has in store for us. I'm Tara. I don't know how to do the transition. Okay, next part of the vlog. You blanket your ball. Oh, now it's under the couch. Now what are we gonna do? Oh, never mind. You got it. Oh, it's under the couch again. We're doing pretty good so far today. I have cleaned the kitchen. I have done my laundry. I have filled the bird feeders. I have called to reschedule an appointment. I have called to schedule my med delivery for this week. And I did all of that before noon, which felt pretty good. And at noon, I just had some lunch. It was just soggy leftover pizza. You didn't miss anything there, I promise. And I think that's everything I felt I should do today. So I'm pretty much free to do what I might like for the rest of the afternoon. I might actually go take a walk. I need to build a better habit with that. I make a lot of excuses for not doing it, and I know that I'll feel better if I do it. I actually installed Pokemon Go on my phone again, just to see if it would help motivate me more to get outside, because my excuse is that I don't like where I live, and it's an ugly little town, and I hate looking at it. Which is not a good excuse. I need to just suck it up and go. Like, it feels like a punishment sometimes, because I like walking. Like, if I'm going camping or something, I love hiking trails and stuff. That's great for me. But oh my god, I just hate walking around this town. I'm being dramatic, like it's not even that bad. I just have a terrible attitude about it. So I installed Pokemon Go to see if it would help me. And I was like, I haven't played this since the year it came out. And then I realized that was 10 years ago, and I immediately withered into dust. My only reservation with it has been, if I'm going outside, the point is to not be on my phone. The point is to just sort of be with myself, be reflective and meditative and have time away from screens and be unplugged. I'm glad that it was getting me moving, but I don't know if I'm going to stick with it. I know I haven't done any writing yet in this writing vlog. I don't know if it's going to happen today. Cut me some slack. I was also trying to work on my journaling practice. I'm a very avid journaler. I fill notebooks like they're paying me to do it, but I'm not as intentional with my journaling as I feel I should be. 9 out of 10 times my journaling is very like surface level, stream of consciousness. I'm just trying to filter out some brain noise, which isn't, I don't have to be profound every time I sit down to write a journal entry. You know, sometimes I do just need the catharsis of writing something down. It doesn't have to be deep. But I do think I would benefit from enhancing my journaling practice, so I've been trying to incorporate prompts. I think the 3 prompts that I keep coming back to are, how do I want to feel at the end of the day? And then at the end of the day, what did I learn today? Which I like because it's making me, the fact I know I'm going to ask myself that is making me go out of my way, however briefly, to just learn something new. It doesn't have to be a life lesson. It doesn't have to be some revelation of my identity as a human. It can just be, yesterday, for example, I was watching gameplay footage of the new Resident Evil game, which is phenomenal, by the way. And as I was watching it, I was just like, I wonder where the word zombie originates from. So I Googled it, and it has essentially African origins, and I thought that was really cool. I learned something. I taught myself something, and it's, you know, it took me 20 seconds to go out of my way to do that, and I felt enriched for it. So just trying to build habits like that and being mindful in that way. And then the third prompt is, what am I looking forward to tomorrow? It's been helpful in improving my attitude, I guess, regardless of how my day went. Telling myself I look forward to doing better tomorrow, something as simple as that really helps me kind of make peace if I didn't have a particularly good day. On that note, I think I'm gonna make myself take a walk. When I come back, I guess I'll decide what I want to do then. Maybe I'll see how the exercise makes me feel, if I want to try to do something with my story, or if I would rather work on art. I wanted to do like a little memorial painting for my dog, but I've been sort of working on that in short bursts because it is difficult. That's been my Monday so far. My to-do list was more just like maintenance, housekeeping, set a stage for myself than it was a lot of forward progress on any goals, but the maintenance days are part of being productive. Those are part of self-care because you have to sustain your baseline of wellness and organization and routine and blah, blah, blah in order to then, on the days that are more productive, you have that foundation to build off of. Anyway, that's, I don't know, I'm just rambling now because I haven't talked to the camera in a while and I'm lonely. I will talk to you in a bit and we'll see where to go from here. is so dark and gloomy today, which means I didn't get to see the super special lunar eclipse or whatever because it's raining. Oh well. Today was also my first attempt at a writing session in about 2 weeks, and it did not go well. No activity. Lights are on, but nobody's home. Just crickets. Once again, just crickets. What I was thinking was I am wondering if maybe I've been too zoomed out from the story for a while, for this whole time, because historically when I try to jump into a novel or any story without a plan, without an outline, without at least some kind of guideposts to steer my story in any particular direction, I always get stuck because I don't know where I need to go. So with this story, I've known from the beginning there are going to be things I will not know until I do start writing. That's just the nature of the process, at least in my experience. But I was thinking and hoping and expecting that I would be able to think of more information and have a clearer, bigger picture before I did start doing any writing. But I'm wondering if maybe I do need to do a little bit of discovery writing, not drafting, just some exploration of either scene ideas that I do have for the story or random situations to plop my characters in to start getting in their heads and start getting my boots on the ground in this world that I'm building and start getting a little more intimate with the story because, I've just been so pulled back this whole time thinking that I needed to have that more clinical bird's eye view. But maybe I'm not making a lot of progress because maybe some answers are hidden within details that I'm not gonna see from way back here. It's possible I come up with something that I might want to include in the draft, but I'm not calling it drafting right now. It's just more of an exercise, especially if I pick a scene that is not canon or is just super mundane and not contributing to the story. Like, for example, you could write your character grocery shopping. Is that riveting content to read? Probably not. But I think you can learn a lot about your character from grocery shopping. Do they shop at a leisurely pace, or are they the kind of person who wants to be in and out of the store as quickly as possible? Are they in a hurry because they don't like people, or are they in a hurry because maybe they have someone or something at home they are responsible for that they can't leave alone for a long time? What kind of food do they buy? Do they like cooking? Do they buy raw ingredients? Or do they buy a lot of prepackaged meals? Do they buy prepackaged meals because they don't like cooking, or maybe they just don't have a lot of time? If they don't have a lot of time, what is their lifestyle like that is not allowing them time to cook, etc., etc. I don't know if I'm going to go with that specific idea, but that was just the first thing that came to mind. So there's a free prompt for you, though, if you're happening to feel stuck as well. I was thinking too, I guess part of that was I wanted to write a list of I have a lot of setting ideas for where scenes could take place, but I don't necessarily know what scene would take place in these locations. So I thought maybe if I just pretend I'm playing The Sims and drop my character in the world somewhere and just see what they do, maybe I'll get a scene idea that way. I don't know if it'll help me, but I certainly don't think it'll hurt to try. And I also just miss doing actual writing. I have not written anything for months. I think the last thing I worked on was a fanfic that I didn't even finish, and I think I shelved that in like October last year. And the last original thing I worked on was a short story that I also did not finish. That was from like last March, so a year ago. So I'm a little out of practice. I'm itching to just start using words again. It's just hard because most of my I'm coming up with ideas, but a lot of my ideas are alternatives to ideas I already had. And it's still momentum because at least my mind is working and I'm thinking about it and I am coming up with ideas. So I'm like, okay, I'm still capable of being creative, but the problem is it's a lot of this or this, and it's not this then this to have a story idea. I'm just basically coming up with different premises. That was my thought. I didn't think of my story I wasn't thinking of plot points in my writing session this morning, but I was thinking, okay, maybe if I change my approach, if I change my perspective, if I change the scope for a little bit, maybe my way forward lies in there. So I might do that today. I know Wednesdays are supposed to be my writing day and today's Tuesday, but I'm just so out of practice and it was so frustrating to not make any kind of progress this morning when I was trying to work on it. I don't like ending a creative session feeling frustrated. But sometimes when I am frustrated, that means I have to stop because it's just gonna backfire if I keep trying to push. I will just start tinkering around with some prose work, I guess, the next time I decide to sit down. It is a very gloomy, rainy day today, and that does frequently lend itself well to writing, so maybe I will take advantage of that. I don't know. We'll see. I keep saying we'll see where the day takes me because that's about the best I can do. I'm at my desk. I have opened my laptop once again, and I just finished saying I miss writing, I want to write, and I was giving myself permission to write something, but wouldn't you know it, the second I open a document and I'm looking at a page, it's not even a blank page, I have notes on this page, but I am immediately intimidated and overwhelmed, and I don't remember the English language, and I don't know where to start, and I'm like, I don't know anything about this story whatsoever. Where do I even pick? How do I prompt myself? It's having the opposite of the intended relaxation effect. It makes me want to immediately do something else, and I don't want to avoid it like that. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set a timer for like 15 minutes and just see where that takes me. I could have absolutely nothing and make zero progress, but at least I made the time for it. Or maybe I'll get the ball rolling and I'll push way past 15 minutes and I could have a really successful discovery session. Or in the middle, I could just do a little bit and at least I tried. It's better than nothing, I guess. If I can do just enough today to give myself a solid jumping off point tomorrow, that will feel pretty productive. Because it's been so long since I was even really thinking about this story, I need to get my feet wet again. That's just the little exercise I'm gonna do now. Let's see how it goes. The timer in my battery was the battery in my timer was dead, and it was not. I was like, why is this the slowest 15 minutes of my entire existence? Okay, let's try this again. I wrote 592 words. Not bad for 15 minutes, and I didn't know what I was doing when I sat down. Are they good? No, but that wasn't the point. Did I learn anything new? Not really. It was definitely the kind of thing where as I was going, I was thinking like, this doesn't make sense, and this contradicts something else, and how would he know this if he's thinking that? Immediately pointing out plot holes as you go, but it wasn't. I find that still helpful because then you're still thinking about it, and if you're problem solving while you're going. If you write one thing and you're like, that doesn't make sense, then you know what you need to problem solve, if that makes sense. It was something. It was the start of something. It was motion, you know. I was better than sitting here doing nothing and hemming and hawing and procrastinating. So it is just about exactly noon now. So I think I'm gonna have some lunch. I don't know if I'm gonna come back to writing today, but I hope this was enough to make it a little easier to start tomorrow. Put a hoodie on, it's a little chilly. I'm colder when it's like 40 degrees and wet than I am if it's just straight up 10 degrees. I don't know what that is. It's almost more frustrating working in smaller windows of time than it is to just not work on it at all and wait until you have more time. Or at least that's how I've been feeling lately, because it is, I think, like I said earlier, like if it takes me a while to start getting momentum, and then when I finally get going and I immediately have to stop, it's just like, ugh! I don't know, like there's still benefit to it. I don't want to change, well, I was gonna say I don't want to change the way I do my routine, but I definitely could enhance it. I think it's just harder right now specifically because I am in such a annoying part of the process where I'm still brainstorming and there's still so much I don't know. I know I'm gonna need a lot more time to figure things out. These shorter writing sessions just feel very, I don't know that I'm gonna get much out of these shorter writing sessions, so it's really more about just the gesture and routine in maintaining them than it is about expecting progress. I like progress. I like seeing number go up. So it's, I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'm figuring it out. Again, it's anything's better than nothing, and I definitely believe that. Good morning. It is 7:30 on Wednesday morning. Today is meant to be a writing day, and I do have an appointment in the afternoon, but it's just a telehealth like med check that's like a 30-second phone call, so that shouldn't be too much of an interruption. I'm starting out today by looking at my notes again, both in Notion, and I started to use Milanote. I haven't figured out the best way for me to use Milanote. It's kind of just been another format for brain dumping. I was trying to use it basically the way I was trying to do stuff on paper in the last writing vlog. Each page has like a separate idea, and then I can move stuff around and try to physically group things together. Admittedly, doing it on Milanote is a little tidier than doing it on paper, but I can see the potential of Milanote for sure, but I just haven't figured out exactly how to best use it for my needs. But anyway, I was remembering how I said I have all of these alternative ideas for certain parts of the story. I think I haven't been very diligent about grouping together which ideas belong to which version of the story. I could have these columns of options where it's like, these ideas can't all exist together, but I need to draw lines and be like, if I do this, then this has to work with that, and then that leads to this version of events and this version of the story versus this version of the story. Like, everything's just one big jumble for the most part in my head. And I was trying at one point to write outlines for the backstory, like different versions of possible backstories that lead up into where the book itself starts. Maybe early last month was when I had started doing that. It was helpful because I started with backstory and it was beginning to lead into events of the main story, which then made me think I might need to be starting my book earlier than I thought, or like the story itself needs to begin earlier in the timeline than I was thinking. I do not have an organized system for this, and I can't quite figure out what works for me because I've never found success with it before. I'm trying to be patient with the fact that I am learning. It is just very like overwhelming and frustrating. Not in like a discouraging, like I don't want to do it kind of way, just like if anything it's the opposite where I'm like I want to figure this out because I am actually, at least frequently, I can be a very organized person. Once I figure out a system, I can stick with it and it can last. The problem is just figuring out a brand new system for something I've never done before that is extremely ambitious. I still want to attempt the discovery writing like I was talking about yesterday, but what might be a better place to focus is trying to organize those alternate ideas and figuring out different timelines, different versions of events to see if I can piece together something that makes sense, something that has the most potential. I mean, I don't know, I guess I could do both. I could try to pick an idea and then free write based off of just that one little bullet point, just to try and explore some of its potential. I don't know if any of that made sense. I just woke up pretty much. Not that that means anything. I'm not always the most articulate off the top of my head. That's basically where I think I might try to focus today, or at least where I'm gonna start out and try to start out, is organizing these alternative versions of things to come up with different options for timelines and different versions of the story. But what I might do is just take a shower and have some breakfast and then come back to it when I'm feeling fresh and clean and ready for the day. Do I want a smoothie or do I want something hot? Also, I forgot to plan dinner ahead of time for today, so I have to do that. If I don't do it now, I'm gonna forget and then I'm not gonna have anything ready for tonight. Nobody tells you when you're growing up that 90% of adulthood is about food. You're planning food, you're buying food, you're preparing food, you're eating food, and you're cleaning up after food. And that's it. That's your whole life forever until you die. I'm sick of it, and there's nothing I can do about it. That's a little dramatic, but I'm just saying. I think I did a good job with this smoothie. Kind of mid. I don't know what it needs, but I made a lot of it, so now I have to drink it anyway. So it is 12:15. I've been sitting here for about 2 hours. It was very difficult right at the beginning to get back in the headspace of this story and find my footing and dig my heels in and remember what I was thinking about and trying to figure out where to start. My thought was like, okay, just go back to the beginning once again. How are we setting this story up? I opened a new board in Milanote and I was just taking the preliminary idea that kicks it off and the different options for the details of that, and was doing the bubble chart or whatever to link things up. And I was coming to some decisions through just a little bit of that exercise. So I just took what I was thinking and started to make another dummy outline, trying to put some things in order. First, I was trying to establish what happened before the story starts. In my mind, it's the prologue, but I don't know if I'm actually gonna write the prologue or if I write the prologue just to teach myself what happens, even if I don't include it in the actual draft. I think I had the inciting incident or an inciting incident that happens early in the story. I had originally been thinking this also happened before the story starts, but I'm thinking I'm gonna include it, and I think it's gonna be the first thing that happens in the story. Maybe I feel like I do need to write it similar to the prologue. Maybe there are certain things I need to write just as an exercise to explore the idea myself and then decide if I want to include it in the draft or if I want to write the draft in a different way that might reference those things, or I don't know. I only outlined up to the theoretical prologue, and then chapter 0 might be prologue, might be the beginning. And then, not sure if it's chapter 1, but the first chapter that we meet one of the protagonists, Gabriel. There's gonna be this whole situation with him that I also thought was gonna be an off-camera thing, but I'm thinking I might be able to construct that into the inciting incident. There was gonna be this whole twist with it, or this big reveal in relation to it, that if I write it in the beginning, it's not gonna be the reveal that I thought it was, and that's okay. I can think of something else to do in relation to that, and then there would be another big reveal later, so it's not that big of a deal. It's still so early that it's okay if I'm like, oh, never mind, that idea doesn't work, because it's not like I've written anything yet, so I don't have to erase or rewrite anything. It's just the only thing I'm rewriting are notes, and even when I change my mind on something, I'm not even deleting it. I just am crossing it out or setting aside the document or whatever because I'm maybe I come back to one of those ideas. I have no idea. I don't want to completely erase ideas, and maybe it doesn't work for this story. Maybe it's an idea I can use for a different story or a sequel. I don't know. I definitely don't plan on writing a sequel for this, but then again, you never know. And then I took the concept for the inciting incident and I actually started to jump into a document and do some writing. I think there can be a really fun conversation, and the setup for this inciting incident, I think, would be fun to write, and I think it would set a tone that I like. I have to figure out where all of my characters are starting out and to know what order to introduce them and to know what order their personal inciting events happen. Anyway, so I was doing a little writing of this conversation, this scene that I wanted to explore with and begin to know this character, begin to know Gabriel a little better. And I wrote, I think, almost exactly 1,000 words. 1,013 words. It wasn't all one big... I skipped stuff. There's lines where I skipped, I put just a ... and then I jumped to a different part of the conversation, and then I skipped some other stuff. But it was all part of the same idea. That's what I've accomplished so far today. It's so hard to quantify progress at this point. It's one thing when you're drafting and you can see a literal word count go up and you're I wrote this much today. But in this planning stage, it's harder to say exactly what kind of progress was made and here's the amount of work that was done. I feel like it was progress. I was working on it and it was momentum. I think I just need to keep going with the little dummy outline that I was coming up with and see where the rest of my characters are, and then I can move stuff around based on where they're starting out. Nothing super profound has been revealed to me right now, but I at least feel like this is a decent framework to try to continue working with to see if I can get some answers that way. But I'm hungry, so it's time for lunch, and I will try to come back to it after lunch, but if not, I feel like at least I did something today. I did more today than I did yesterday, and I did more today than I did the last day that was supposed to be a writing day. I'm being very stubborn about wanting to strong arm my way through figuring out this story, but I don't know, there's a lot. This is hard. Writing a book is hard. Hello, it's Thursday morning now. I left you at kind of an awkward spot yesterday because I had my writing session, and then I took a break to eat lunch, and then I had my phone appointment, and then I had to clean the kitchen, and then my lunch did not sit with me very well, so my stomach was really upset, and I just ended up not having enough left in me for the rest of the day to do much of anything, so I just wanted to hop on here this morning and try to wrap things up a little better. I did do my writing session this morning for a little while, and I was just continuing the approach of looking at the story from a timeline point of view and the prospective chapter outline. I was just thinking that might help me ground myself in the story a little more, because it's been so jumbled and abstract, and I have all of these thoughts floating around and all of these premises and these revelations that need to happen, and there's things that the characters don't know that the readers will know, and then there's things that I need to figure out, when do certain things get revealed and to whom and how and the context and blah 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 blah. I keep going back and forth between I need to look at the big picture and figure it out first, and then also thinking I need to narrow my focus and look at one piece at a time, and then try to flesh out each of those pieces to better understand how things fit together. I have 3 protagonists as of now, trying to figure out who do I start with? Which character's point of view do I start with? Because that's going to set the tone. Depending on who I open with, we're going to be introduced to the conflict differently, if that makes sense. So yesterday, what I was working on was Gabriel, one of the protagonists. I was working on what would prospectively be his introduction, which if he was chapter 1, that would be it would be introducing more of the intrigue side of things. It's essentially a conversation. So it's not like an action-packed opening, but it introduces the intrigue side of things, and there is a tension and there is a clear conflict that's being proposed. Versus, I was thinking if I open from Sawyer, the female protagonist's point of view, her introduction, at least as of now in my mind, is going to be a lot more intense and a lot more kinetic. I was going back and forth between those two. The other hesitation that I had with opening with Gabriel is I was then realizing what I was thinking would be his introduction could also belong to the prologue. And I do start with Sawyer, and then Gabriel's introduction would be different later in the story. Because with 3 protagonists, I want to introduce everybody as early as possible. I just feel like that is efficient. I feel like it's very jarring when it's like you read 3 chapters from one character's point of view, and then chapter 4 you're suddenly in a new character, and like you started to get accustomed to that voice and that perspective, and then it's a little more jarring to then jump to a new point of view. Not that it's can't be done, and it's not, when I read it, it's not too bad, but I guess just my own standards for myself and my own preference for writing, I just want to get everybody in the picture as quickly as possible. So whoever I start with in chapter 1, chapter 2 is going to be a different character, and that's going to help me sort of figure out the pacing and figure out how I'm introducing people and introducing their personal motives and their personal conflicts. Anyway, like the idea I had for Gabriel's introduction, depending on whether or not I make that conversation the opening, the reader would most likely be able to identify at least part of this mystery element of the story very early, before the other characters realize it. Not that that is inherently bad, but then you have to balance that dramatic irony of the reader knows this, they're waiting for the characters to learn it, and the longer it takes for the characters to learn what the reader knows, the more frustrating and annoying it starts to get. So that's something I would have to be mindful of. I don't know if any of that made sense, and I know I'm talking about things very abstractly and very vaguely. Obviously, I don't want to talk in too many specifics because 1, spoilers, and 2, anything can change at any time, so I don't want to be like, here's my idea, here's the story, and then the next time I talk to you being like, never mind, it's entirely different now, and doing that 614 times. But yeah, that's where I'm at. That's my approach. My plan is to continue looking at it from more of a rough outline point of view, a timeline point of view. And I'm telling myself, if nothing else, my routine is going to get me to the end of this project. I am spending at least an hour a day, like 4 to 5 days a week. There's no way I show up almost every single day for this story and come up with nothing on any of those days ever. I will figure something out eventually if I just remain consistent consistent, and I've been doing pretty good with that so far. I know I didn't make a lot of progress this week, but last week, you know, was difficult, so this week was more about just getting back in touch with that routine and getting my feet wet again and getting back in the saddle. But I'm hoping that now I have the ball rolling again and my mind is back in writing mode and thinking mode and planning mode, and I'm hoping that I can figure out an approach that helps me make better progress. But yeah, just consistency is key, if nothing else. That's what I am using to encourage myself, and I guess that's where I will also leave you for the end of this video. Thanks so much for watching if you got to this point. Sorry if it wasn't like super riveting. There's gonna be really productive, momentous days, and then there's gonna be days where nothing happens. That's just part of the process. I don't mind being transparent that like it is not something that's coming super easily to me, but it's also not that nothing's happening. You know, I am thinking of the story, I'm thinking of ideas, they just may not all be cohesive ideas, and I may not be expanding as much on existing ideas, but at least my mind is working, and I take comfort in that because it's better than just silence and no ideas, and I'm not immersed and I'm not invested in what I'm doing anymore. Like I feel strongly about it. It's just figuring out a way to figure it out. Wish me luck as I move forward. I hope that the next time I talk to you, I have some exciting progress made, and I hope that your projects are going well, and I wish you luck, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye.
Tu veux quoi ça?